When you're building something like Vibe, you have to know from the beginning that your journey is going to be a bit different from what others might have gone through or might go through. I mean, sometimes I remember in the early days, even now, because I used to work in payments. Obviously, payments was the biggest use case of technology. Early days of Nigeria tech scene. When I was like, yeah, I'm going to go do this vibe thing with my friends, online dating. Some people just thought I was a joker. Like, what do you mean? You want to do dating online? And you know how Nigerians can be sometimes.
Hi guys, welcome to the episode of Build by Visible. I'm Yemi, and then with me today is my co-host, as always, Dami, and then we have an
Hi.
amazing guest, Iko Adetolani. Iko, can you share a bit about your background and then just very high level intro on how you got into tech?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on the podcast. First of all, background. So my name is Eko, like Yemi just said, and I'm the co-founder, one of the co-founders of Vybe. Vybe is a dating platform that is designed to help Africans find the right partners for them. Thinking about how I got into tech, I think my first interaction with like tech in terms of engineering was probably sometime in 2007. I took some coding class with a company in Nigeria. I don't even know if they're still in existence, but that was the first time I tried to build anything. And I think subsequently, I just experimented till I found myself studying computer science and math and eventually building things.
Yeah, so fun fact, yeah. Iko and I literally started learning this at the same time, and then we took the same path, and suddenly we went in two very separate directions. One of us decided to become a Jedi, and then the other joined the dark side.
Or one decided to become a founder and the other decided to become a field founder or wannabe founder. I wonder who the wannabe founder is.
Yeah, so
Yeah, well, I already introduced myself as the co-founder of Vibe. So
yeah. So back to Vibe. Iko, how did you start Vibe? You can give us the long version of the story. I know there's a short one, but we'd rather the longer version of the story.
I think before going into the story of Vibe, I have to start from the story of myself and my co-founders, Ronke and Osaje. Basically, I was working in tech, doing a lot of freelance stuff. Got a job, 9 to 5. A few weeks or months after I joined, this lady joins the company as well, software engineer, and like we're cool. We spoke a bit, and then she was always raving about this other guy that she knew, very smart guy, first class computer science, great software engineer as well. And one way or the other, he also joined the company. I think apart from being colleagues, we were also friends. So we would gist about everyday life stuff, talk about tech products. So it was like I wouldn't say early stages of the Nigerian tech industry, but startups just started booming. So every time you go on Tech Point, Tech About, there's always like a new startup. And so we review the products, discuss about it. Oh, what do you think about this? And yeah, we always had that like relationship and bond. I think what even used to happen, like three of us used to sit together. I used to sit at the angle, like the corner. I don't know if that's still associated with bad boys in quotes. And then Ron came in between, and then Osaje at the other end. So one thing we always had in common was we always felt like a lot of startups. So again, this is like maybe early stages of Nigerian tech startups. So a lot of the ideas were, oh, I'm building Uber, but for Nigeria, or I'm building, the era I'm talking about. And so like we're just like a lot of these things are not very relevant to what people are facing day to day, or like the kind of problems that we have, especially the unique ones to Africans, Nigerians. So we always had the ideology, and then we just always spoke about it. At some point, myself and Osaji started working on like this interesting idea. At the time, it was a payment idea. It was relating to QR code and things like that. And then we're just playing around with it. And we're thinking of other ideas at the time. Ronke, who is the CEO at Vibe, basically like explained to us the problem that she had with finding a partner online. So she was on, I think, Tinder and one other one, and she just explained that it was trenches, for lack of a better word, out there. and she just explained like the problem source. I'm saying, okay, this is something that is interesting. Right now, we're working on like this payment thing, and we will sort of see how we can develop the idea for both of them. So, what sort of happened at that point was we started talking to some of our friends, family, not necessarily saying we're building a dating app, just finding out what the problems were, talking about, oh, how do you find people? Have you ever tried dating online? What has your experience been? For those who had never tried it, why did you not try to find someone online? I mean, you use Facebook and Twitter and the rest to do other things, so why not? And things like that. So we got a lot of interesting information from that, things relating to like the perception security on these kind of platforms. Also, how like far from would I say our culture or relevant situations it could be. I think a good example is like if you wanted to get a premium account on Tinder, for example. First of all, it's going to cost a lot because their charge at the time was in USD, and then if you even put your Naira card, it won't work. I'm sure like a lot of the listeners will understand like that problem of like using your Naira card. So yeah, we sort of worked on the idea. We had this long sheet of paper. We've kept that sheet of paper till now, where we're just writing all the possible ideas, problems, and things like that. But I think the defining moment of like separating those two ideas was we had the payment app. We're going to like scale it with the team that we worked with at the time, but there were some issues there. And then essentially, the API that we built our payment platform on just got cancelled. I'm not going to say the name of the company that powered that API at the time,
You don't want
but
to name and
yeah,
shame.
no. But basically, they just like they said the API is no longer available, and that's the end. And like the entire thing was dead. And then on the Vibe side, there was a competition that was happening at the time. We applied with both of them as two different accounts. So one person filled as one, and the other filled as the other. And Vibe sort of got chosen, and then we went ahead with it. So I think those are like some of the early days of Vibe and how we sort of got to building, scaling, working on it.
It's pretty interesting. I'm in a way, in a twisted way, I'm glad that the API service just went shut down because they saved us from yet another fintech startup.
Yeah.
Because I think people are so sick of fintech, especially people in the tech space right now. Everyone is just like, oh my God, just another fintech again. So, anyway, really happy that you folks got to focus on Vibe and just kind of build it out. So I'm very curious to know like what the early days were like. What were the first days like? You know, you already had this idea. You already had like possible explorations. How did you go about building out the product? How did you go about getting your first couple of customers?
So I'd say the first couple of days of Vibe were very, what's the word for it? Scrappy. I think scrappy is the best way to describe it, meaning we were just trying, like, coming up with ideas, finding the cheapest way to implement some of them, doing a couple of things. One thing that really helped was three of us could write code and can write code. And so, like, sort of building the MVP,
It's easy.
yeah, it wasn't very
Yeah.
difficult for us. I think I've said this in the past, but like the main core architecture of Vibe, at least back then, was built in like one day, one night. I'll get back to how we got into that situation.
Oh
But yeah,
wow.
so the major thing we had to focus on was the product. What was it going to be? Why was it going to be different? How was it going to be different? How does he target the problems? What are the problems? Who should our target customers be? And that was basically sending out surveys, getting feedback from people. We didn't have a product at the time, but just listening to what people had to say about it, why they used it, why they didn't use it, did they believe in it, and things like that. And when it got to the point of building, so we sort of started something, but you know how sometimes you can drag your feet, like, yeah, you know, it's a good idea and you're working around it. But I mean, at the time, we had 9 to 5, we had so many things to worry about. So we're building and we're excited about it, but I would say it was slow. But essentially, the competition I spoke about earlier, we applied for it like, okay, yeah, we have this product. In real life, it was only the fintech app at the time that was like of demoable quality, like you could actually perform a transaction. Vibe was, I don't even think like we had APIs and we had like some basic functionality. I think just login or something funny like that. We didn't really have anything. And so we applied and they said, yeah, okay, this idea sounds cool. You guys need to show up this day for the demo. I'm like, okay, we've told these guys that this product exists. So now is the time to like, oh, well, you have all your research, we have the product ideas we've sort of refined over time from feed, and we started writing code. I think the day before the competition, all of us slept in Ronke's house and we were taking turns. So for context, I write backend code. Both of them write mobile, so Android and iOS. We're taking turns. So two people will be awake at every point in time. So I would write APIs for like five, six, seven different features while somebody is like integrating those APIs on the app. I will be sleeping. And then when they do like the UI, for example, I now have to wake up sometimes and like work on the APIs to support the design that we had. And so basically, we got the MVP out. We went for the competition. I remember that day. I don't know if Osaje will be happy I'm saying this, but Osaje wore my shirt, and I'm bigger than him, like physically. So he was just my shirt. We went for the competition, and like long story short about the competition, we actually won.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a competition powered by Diamond Bank at the time, and yeah, that's how it was in terms of getting our first users. So after we built the app, won the competition, we started to refine the idea, refine the product, give it to people to test. But when we were ready to like put it out and say, okay, now we have a public beta, we started off with our friends. All our friends that were single, we just added them and said, see, download this app, join, set up your profile. And by the time I spoke to my friends, Osaji and Ronke spoke to their own friends, we had a fair amount of people on the app. And then
Your
what we
single
now
friends
did,
must,
what?
sorry. I was saying your single friends must either really like you or really hate you. It's one of the
Yeah,
Well,
me, how come you didn't download the app? How come you're still single now?
Yemi was actually one of the early users. He was one of the people that I told to download and join. He's not serious. That's why he's
He's
still
not a serious person.
exactly.
Anyway, I just on the side note, please, Yemi is single and he needs love. Please, if you are looking for a husband, Yemi is a very good man. But please continue, Eko.
Yeah, you know what? In the I think in the description for this episode, you can put Yemi's Vibe profile. So there's actually a link where you can share someone's profile. So you can put his Vibe profile link there, and then you can click and match it. He's a nice, hardworking guy.
Yes.
Yeah,
He can cook, he can clean.
exactly,
We trained him well. Please
exactly.
come and take him off our hands.
I
Um,
literally write like checks for a living, but it's not going to invest in you, know. So please,
Yeah, so we got our friends on the app, and we got them to tell like people that they knew. We sort of tried to think of, okay, now we're getting some people on the app. I think most people, when you're thinking of an idea, you think of, oh, I'm going to do my public launch. You just think, oh, everybody is just going to start using the app. I think rarely does it happen. It happens like that sometimes, but not always. So initially, like we just got our friends, they were giving us feedback on some of the early bugs. And then something that we did that really helped us grow was we looked at how, okay, Facebook and other like social platforms, they sort of did like a targeted thing where they focus on certain user groups. And said, I think for Facebook, it was they went by school. So they went to, like, they started from Harvard, obviously, and then moved to like schools in the environment. So we tried to digitize that sort of launch plan and say, okay, who are people that appeal to this target group that we've identified as the target users for Vibe? And we sort of worked with them. So what we did was we spoke with them and said, see, we have this app. This is what it can do. This is what it can do. How many of your people do you think you can get to sign up? And that was like how we started building up. But I think real moments where things just exploded. So when we launched like the public beta, I remember it was sometime in April. I was debugging code on my phone, but that's a different story. We had like 1,000 users. This is our public beta. Like when we announced anybody can download the app now. We had like 1,000 users in like almost 2,000 self in less than 24 hours. And it was just shocking for me because at that point, the servers packed up. Chat was no longer working properly. Everything just shut down. And I just remember it's one of those things where you're like, yes, this thing finally worked and people like love it. Okay, maybe it's too early to say they love it, but you're filled with excitement, but you're also freaking out that like your chat is crashing. Nobody can chat with anybody, nobody can like somebody's profile. And yeah, I think that was really just how like the growth sort of started. And we just decided, okay, we're going to try out more um, things to see how that goes.
Yeah, that's crazy. And so it's interesting that all three founders for Vibe are technical founders, which is very unlikely. You guys are probably yeah, definitely
Unicorn,
outliers
rainbows,
in that regard.
unicorns.
Sorry?
Yeah, I was just saying that they're unicorns, rainbows, like things you just never see.
People see rainbows, damn me. I'm sure everyone has
Yeah,
seen
but
it.
like, okay, the end of a rainbow.
It's
No
fine. The
one knows
pot of
the
gold.
beginning or end of a rainbow.
Yes, essentially you guys are the pot of gold in that
Oh
as
You
well.
yes.
you know
Yes,
what?
reject.
I would say we're tech enabled. So we're tech founders, yes, but I think three of us have different individual skills. So all of us we know how to write code, yes, but we have different individual skills that are almost part of like would I say our personalities and experiences from things we've done in the past. For example, Bronke is great at organizing things. If you want to have an event in the next 3 days, she knows how to get everybody, call everybody that needs to be done. That has nothing to do with her ability to write tech. Osaje, on the other end, Osaje is the kind of person that he loves new technology. He will sit down on his own and see, this chat is taking 2 seconds to receive a message. How can I make it 1.5 seconds, for example? And he'll figure that out. For me, on the other end, I think maybe I fall into more of a product thing. So I was just writing code because like I wanted to get my own ideas out fast. I wanted to create this. Code was more of a channel for me.
It means to an end.
Exactly. So like we had different individual skills that sort of like helped us with different parts of the business, but having the cortex skills, yeah, were definitely valuable at the beginning and even still now.
Yeah, it's great that you mentioned that because I was going to ask how you guys basically deal with the decision making process. So, as you've explained the personalities a bit, so it's starting to shed some light. But through the evolution of your roles, because like you mentioned, I think your CEO, Brunke is COO, and Osage is CTO. Was this a natural transition for you guys, or was there a bit of friction where everyone is like, "I want to be CTO, I write code," and then beyond that, so as you started to grow and then your team started to build, can you share a bit on how first you identified the things that were most important to do early, particularly with limited finances, and maybe innovative ways you were able to execute to get KPIs that you set internally? And maybe you can also share a bit on the KPI setting process. That was a very long question.
Um, I hope I got everything, but I'll just try to run through. In terms of decision making, I think that has been easy for us. We're three people. In terms of like obviously we started as three people, so the founders. So usually it's majority carry to vote. If two people vote against one idea, that's fine. But I think vibe generally with the other people that work, we have a flat structure basically. I mean, just earlier this week we're having a meeting. Was it this week or last week? We're having a meeting and then I said, "Oh, let's try this marketing thing." And I think the person that manages our social media was just like, "Yeah, that doesn't make sense." And other people sided, and that was fine. Like, so we're pretty flat, but for making decisions, like majority carries the vote. Then in terms of managing the roles, I don't think we really had that situation of oh, everybody wants to be CEO. I think for a long time we just identified as co-founders, which is why I probably introduced myself as a co-founder of Vibe at the beginning. We identified as co-founders, but we knew that we had to put some structure in place so that everybody has like other things that they are the like sole person you hold responsible in that field. And I think our natural behavioral attributes and also like experiences that we've had in the past sort of helped us decide on what role is the best for who. That doesn't mean that we don't support each other in like our various roles, but like I said, Ronke is the CEO because I would say she's probably more organized than me and she knows how to get things moving, remove any blockers. Osaje, he's looking for the new AI model to like improve security, for example. So those are things that they have naturally, and so it was easy to sort of get into like the roles for each of us. What were the other two questions you asked? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll try to. So it was really around how did you identify what were the most important things early, particularly with limited resources, and how were you able to execute when you launched? So we understand what the founder dynamics was, but now kind of the I'd say the 0.5 to 1, because like 0 to 0.5 was fairly straightforward as all of you write code. But now, so beyond the code, when the program was done, the event with Diamond Bank, what were the key things you identified? Were there KPIs? What determined that process? Just walk us through, and then how you executed with limited resources.
So I think for us, the most important thing at that time was to get all the ideas we had discussed, all the plans, like the initial plans, the things we wanted to test out, the things that we were the least sure about, to get them into the app and get people to use them. Because in our head, when you're building a dating app that is designed for Africans, there's really nobody to follow. If I wanted to wake up now and build, I hope I don't get any shade, but if I wanted to build a payment app, peer to peer payment app for Nigeria, there are a couple of guys I can look at. I can look at Agbeg, which is now called Pocket. I can look at Bata, for example, from Flutterwave and things like that. But when you're building a dating app that you have like identified the problem as being different, you sort of had to test a couple of things. So that's what we wanted to do. What are the biggest things we didn't understand? What are the biggest things that we wanted to test out and get out of the way? So getting those things into the product were some of our top priorities. Second part of that was getting distribution. So getting the initial distribution, because you're launching out, you don't have a lot of money, but you need to get it in the hands of people to be able to get the feedback that you need to improve the product or pivot, for example. So we needed to get distribution. How do you get it to the right people? How do you get it to the right target audience? So how we basically did that was focusing on groups. So the way human dynamics work, there are certain groups that have certain behaviors. What we did was to say, okay, if we need, for example, people that are university students, maybe doing a partnership with one of the events happening in Unilag would get you that audience. And then, okay, they use the app. What's the feedback like? Are people dropping off after a certain point? How are they using it? Are they telling their friends about it? And that now takes me sort of into metrics. For us, the major metrics that we were focused on at the time was uptime and also distribution. I mean, there was a time that we were really scared because I think this happens a lot in B2C where something just happened. Maybe somebody just posts a tweet about your app. You just see a lot of downloads for like that whole week or for the next 2 weeks. We will just be scared because you know that your servers are going to crash like this and you just have issues, and that was stressful. So, can we get this server up? How long can it be up for? And then, how can we reach more people to test the app, give us feedback on what they like, what they don't like? At the initial stage, I would say revenue wasn't even part of the things that we were initially concerned about. We just wanted to know, what do people like, what don't they like, and can we keep this app like up, basically not crashing. I hope I've answered sort of like the questions that you had around that.
I would say that you did. Um, and it's very interesting problems to have. Like those are always the good times, I would assume. Like times where you're worrying about, oh, too many users downloading your app, or too many people. Like, so I can't imagine how thrilling and how exhausting that also must have been. But yeah, I think for me right now, I'm just a little curious into are more curious about your experience as a founder. So I kind of want to just dive deeper into that. It's like, so what has your experience been just as a founder of a product in a very, I don't say non-generic, but like in a very not mainstream space, right? The dating space, especially in Africa, isn't something that isn't a space where people are building a lot of products in. So like what has your experience been just being a founder, especially like given, the space that you're operating in?
I would say the summary is probably enlightening, but like to go a bit into detail, when you're building something like Vibe, you have to know from the beginning that your journey is going to be a bit different from what others might have gone through or might go through. I mean, sometimes I remember in the early days, even now, because I used to work in payments. Obviously, payments was the biggest like use case of technology. Early days of Nigeria tech scene. When I was like, yeah, I'm going to go do this vibe thing with my friends, online dating. Some people just thought I was a joker. Like, what do you mean? You want to do dating online? And you know how Nigerians can be sometimes. And obviously, the whole like idea where like Tinder is basically almost like online prostitution, I guess. That didn't help as well. So it just felt like okay, it's like one of those things where like, and this guy he used to be so smart. What is doing
You
now?
now decided to be dating app.
Yeah,
Wow.
you just think like, oh, what's this guy doing? But
Right.
I think for myself and my team, we just knew that what we were solving was like a big problem. We were just focused on it, and we sort of just proved with every validation, every new milestone, every new learning, every new win. I mean, there are people that have gotten married through Vibe, for example. Like, it's now at a point where people are getting like are taking us like seriously and taking
Right.
it seriously. Thinking of the different aspects of the experience, though, I'd say fundraising is like an interesting one. For example, when most people think about funding in Africa, I'm saying like these are people, investors outside the continent. Most of them are interested in fintech because that's like the most popular use case they hear about. So sometimes like it's interesting to them, intriguing to them, but also like they also feel like it's something that they don't know enough about. There's not enough information about it. Today, if I want to see how much Tinder made last year. Obviously, they're part of a public company, but I could find that out online. But even industries outside online dating in Nigeria, like it's not even something you can research about and be like, oh, now I've read about this industry in Africa. Now I feel confident about investing. So it's a lot of, would I say, teaching. So you have to explain to them like how the industry is different, why it's different, what the problems are, what the
Right.
solutions are. And because the problems we were solving or we are solving is so focused on things like you wouldn't understand unless you come from an African community. It doesn't matter if the African community is on the continent or in the diaspora, unless you come from that African background, it's very difficult to understand that when a Yoruba man wants to get married, chances are, again, this is like data we've seen, but chances are he's probably looking for another Yoruba woman to get
Right.
married. That doesn't make sense to the average non-African. So just things like that, just those nuances that are not very clear from the outside. So there was a lot of teaching that we had to do, sharing data of okay, this is what the market is doing, this is what the market can become in the next few years. In terms of, would I say, recruiting, I would say for us, what we've tried to do is make Vibe one of the most interesting things that anybody will want to work on, um, and make the environment great enough that you want to work here and remain with us. And that's obviously also because like we couldn't compete with the high salaries of what some people were paying in the market. We just try to make the environment great, try to explain like what we're trying to do, get you to buy into the vision, push transparency as well so that people know what we're doing and all. I mean, there's so many different aspects I can speak about, like how our journey as like Vibe co-founders have been different from everyone. But I mean, I can go on from now to tomorrow.
For sure. I think I'd like to learn a little more about some of the hard lessons that you've learned, the mistakes that you've made. If you're open to sharing with us, I'm sure like some of our listeners will really appreciate.
Obviously, I think my lessons will probably be different from maybe what some of my co-founders have learned, but I think I will share two. One is when you hire for the soul. And what I mean is
Deep, 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 deep.
it's not enough to have skills like, oh, this person is great at what they do. You also have to think about, is this person a good person? It doesn't really matter even the skill level. Like, even if the person was coming in as an intern, you have to think about, is this person a good person? Will this person be a good person? And I think that's one lesson we've learned. We've hired, would I say, wrongly in the past. It wasn't a good fit. So that's what I would say. The way we were driven and every other person in the team was driven about vibe and things we needed to do. We didn't really get that kind of drive. But again, that's not to say that they're a bad person or anything, but I guess they would fit better in some other places. I think the second lesson that I would say is know who to listen to and know what to listen to. And still related to that, I think this is even my Twitter like banner, but it's something about don't listen to someone who hasn't done a particular thing. And if somebody tells you you can't do something, prove them wrong. There was actually another founder that sent that to us after we had like there was something not great that happened. But yeah, I think those are my two lessons. One, hire for the soul, and then two, know who to listen to, know what you're listening to.
Yeah, I have heard that feedback a lot. That about controlling who you're allowed to influence you. I think it was in one of these YC conversations that Michael Seibel was talking about how like as a founder you have to be extremely careful
Yeah,
that to make sure that even down to your Twitter, the kind of content you're consuming on
yeah,
Twitter isn't wrong, because it can just lead you astray, it can make you make the wrong decisions. And
yeah,
also listening to investors, right, isn't always the best option. Like you have to just be a little discerning in the kind of information that you consume and what exactly you pay attention to and what you
yeah.
choose to act upon. So I think that's a very, very interesting piece of advice. And I think it's very, very relevant and very useful. It'll be very useful to a lot of the people that are listening today. So I know you shared a little about some of the challenge that you faced with, like, hiring the wrong person. Or no, not hiring the wrong person, but just in terms of fit, right? Not really hiring like people that fit like the culture and the vision, which is fine, which happens a lot. But I'm curious to know if you have like, any other challenges. Is there any other challenges that you experienced along the way? And I love if you could share, how you're able to overcome them.
So there are a couple of challenges. I'm trying to think of one that will be very relevant. I mean, building a startup is you're basically fighting against challenges every week. Just a new one.
Right. Maybe like one of the really big things that like one of the really big hurdles that you had to overcome, of which like it's fine if you can't really remember anything right now, but I think it's just sometimes very good to be able to share with people some of the very specific challenges, because sometimes, especially when you're building, it can get like very lonely and you feel depressed at some point, uninspired. Having somebody say, hey, I've experienced this before and it was horrible, but I got over it, and you can get over it too, tends to encourage people and make them, give them like the power or the drive they need to move past that situation. So I'm sure there's a lot of things that you have experienced, and it's okay if you don't remember it.
Now that you put it like that, yeah, I think one of the experiences I think was pretty personal for me and maybe a bit funny. So I didn't mention this at the beginning, but basically, like a few months after we launched Vibe, basically applied for YC, and YC said, "Oh, okay, this looks interesting. We want to have a chat with you." So we had the first chat, and they're like, "Ah, this is really cool." And then I remember one morning, I got an email that says, "We think this is really interesting. We want you to come over to our office in Mountain View, California, to like find out more about the business." And I just went. I was so excited. I was like, "Wow!" told my co-founders because like I think I was the one like managing the applications and all.
Right.
Told my co-founders and all, and this was like if you think about the story of Vibe, how we like sort of got to where we are. I mean, we built the first like the basic infrastructure in like one day, then had to like scale that, rebuild when everything was crashing, and then this was a few months after our public beta, and one of the biggest investors in the world was saying that they thought what we're building was interesting. And so we started working on like, oh, getting into like, oh, how are we going to demo things like that, the idea and everything.
Right.
And basically, we went there, had the interview. It didn't work out. I almost packed up again. This was like early days.
Mm-hmm.
You know something that was funny, yeah. So I
What?
used to watch all the YC interview videos on YouTube. Watch everything. This is how they do the interview. I carry Bible and paper. I'll write it down. And so when they gave us Ella that time, what happened was that when they basically said like, oh, like we don't think like we can invest now, and like they gave us some reasons of things that we can do to improve. Um, when I went back, I remember I couldn't use YouTube because anytime I open YouTube now,
You
all
just
my
YC.
they're like, why, why,
This sounds like right after a bad breakup. You-
Hey, man.
exactly, very bad breakup. Like, and the thing is that when you think of the journey, like I said, we launched our public beta like maybe 3 months before something, and then YC was like, we should come here, just like man, like your whole energy sort of like focus on like getting this demo and everything. And so like when it didn't work out, like I basically fell apart. I think it hit me the hardest, or maybe it hit my co-founders as well, but they were just like, being cool about it. I wasn't cool about it. I just, but yeah,
yeah, it was
essentially,
really mushy. Like that's just general announcement. Really mushy. I was in his WhatsApp at that point. Very mushy.
so we're going to like ignore what Yemi said.
Yeah,
But
because Yemi doesn't really have sense. Yemi is not a good judge of character.
yeah, so essentially, man, I think the lesson there was like, when you're building a startup, you have to you have to be prepared for the good, the bad, the ugly, the not so great. Um, and that's just like what helps you go the long mile. Like it's not just about winning now. You have to know like things are always going to happen. So many times after that, we've had like so many things come up, different things happen. I mean, even outside like investment related things. But I think that was the first time that we had that kind of disappointment. I mean, we just won one competition without even initially having the product. So we were on such a high
Hi.
note, and
Hi.
that sort of brought me down. So I'll say for founders, like be excited and know what you're building, but then also think of like the long game. It's not just about do this now, everything is just going to be fast. I know a lot of people see stories of Mark Zuckerberg just built Facebook and everything just started working out like that.
Overnight.
Exactly. For a lot of people that happens, but for the majority of us in the world, your story is not exactly going to be like that. There are going to be bumps along the way. So just be prepared for that. I think that's the story. So if you're listening to this podcast now and you just got some disappointment from maybe a VC, not disappointment, but like if
Rejection.
No, heartbreak.
rejection, exactly, rejection from a VC, or your product isn't working as planned, or even if your girlfriend broke up with you, um,
Vibe
think
is
of
here
the
for you
long,
if your girlfriend broke up with you.
Heartbreak driven product developments.
yeah, like just think of the long game. Like it's going to be a bumpy ride. So just be prepared for that. It's not always going to be smooth sailing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Oh, really?
I'd even argue, sorry, just real quick, on this Facebook story, I feel like people get the story wrong. I believe Facebook was launched in 2004 and it didn't really explode till like 2006. And even then, it was still like, oh, okay. It didn't really, really become mainstream until like 2008, 2009. That's when like everyone, like people outside the US were not really, really get catching on. So it took time. Like, I don't think like there's this idea, and it's something that I also fell prey to. Like I thought that success, like just launch a beautiful product and overnight you get 1 million users and everybody be hailing you that this guy can build, this guy
Exactly.
they build fire. And it's like, no, it's nothing close to it. It's like if you even get your first 100 users, you'll be thanking God, like, God, this is what you've done for me. Like, honestly. So it's I think for me, it's a thing where it's like there's this ideology of overnight success for specific people. Like if you're
Yeah,
exceptional or outstanding, you can experience overnight success. And it's like, no, it takes time. It takes like a year, 2 years, 3 years for you to really, really get there, right? But yeah. Um
Yeah. I think we tend to romanticize a lot of these things. And it's kind of
exactly.
like you launch a product you expect to get from 0 to 1 million in day one. You raise your series A, and then mentally, the next logical step is 6 months from now. I'm going to raise this, and then I raise this. And on paper, it's all great. But then reality slaps, and then there are a lot of things that happen. Like the dinosaurs thought they were going to be here forever. Well,
Exactly.
they're not. That's just one of the things. But then writing on that, maybe if there's one thing, just one thing that you wish you could have done differently through this journey, like what would you have done differently? What will you change if you could change anything?
Hmm. What would I change? I think we would have launched in Kenya faster, I guess.
Why
And
Kenya fast?
so we launched in Kenya last year. I think that launch did a couple of things for me. One, I always knew that, yeah, Africa was different, but I didn't know how different it was until we did that launch. For example, we were just like, oh, we have payments, people can pay with cards. We just like started, okay, we've launched in Kenya now, and basically got no, so this was after we started like making revenue. We got zero traction in terms of payment. And that was simply because in Kenya and most parts of East Africa, they don't care about cards. Like a very small percentage of population is cards. They use M-Pesa and mobile money. Another difference was like launching there. Typically, what we did in like Lagos, which was our core market and is still our core market, Nigeria, we sort of use the women to attract the men because I think that's a lot of how like that's the relationship dynamic in the country, in Nigeria. But in Kenya, it was like the reverse. And so when we started those initial things of, oh, maybe you put a poster with a nice looking woman, for example, like that wasn't catching on. And so those are things that you can't know unless you're on the ground, unless you actually do those things. So it was just like an interesting experience for me. And then also made me and also the team start thinking about, okay, how do we manage the launches? So we want to move to South Africa now as well, do a launch there in like two of the major cities. How is that different from Nigeria, for example? Are we just going to say, oh, we're in South Africa now? Like, how is that different? So more of like the learning I got from how different Africa in itself um, is one thing I really got from Kenya. And I just wish like I had known that earlier. It would have saved us some time. But in the end, it went well.
Thank you. You mentioned something about investors earlier, and
Mm.
as part of those conversations, we just always like to get the unbridged, very raw experiences that founders have had fundraising. So, first, how did you know it was time to raise money? And then maybe what was the fundraising process like for you? So, expectations versus reality, and then just what you learned through that.
How did we know it was time to raise money? I think essentially the product and our pockets told us it was time to raise money. And what I mean is, like I said, lots of people were tripping to Vibe in the early days, and servers were always failing. Needed to scale infrastructure, needed to try more distribution channels, lots of experimentation, and all those things cost money. Initially, we were funding it with like our prize money from the competition we won, which we spent for quite a bit before it ran out, and then we're using our personal money as well to pay for servers. So we had like I think monthly contributions that we had like towards Vibe. But it got to a point where if we didn't get if we didn't source for external capital, um, we're actually going to lose either a lot of people or maybe the whole platform just stops working. So we needed to like sustain growth, product, manage how everything was going. In terms of the experience, I think fundraising for Vibe, it's been there are three things you're going to get. One is a straight out no. We're not interested in this industry. Maybe they do only fintech or logistics or something else. We're not interested basically. Two is people that are just intrigued to even know that there's like a market for online dating on the continent, and they just even want to find out what it's like. So they book calls with you sometimes, and they just want to talk to you and just find out what if there's something there for them. Sometimes some of them commit, and other times they just feel like okay, they want to stick to what they know about. Then the final group, which is my favorite group, these are the people that complete your sentences when you're talking on the call. They understand the problem. Before you say A, they've said B, C, D, and the rest of the alphabet essentially. So I'll say those are the three groups. And I'll say more often we find people in the first and second group, which is like people that either are not even interested in the industry or people that are interested but they don't feel knowledgeable enough to commit money, or they don't feel like they have value add that they can provide in terms of that. But when we speak with those people that get it, it's usually like a straight thing. But I would say they are the lower percentage of the people that we talk to. Again, I think that's just how the industry is, especially on a developing continent like Africa. But yeah, there are people that understand that marriage and partnership is such a big part of our cultural lives as Africans. I mean, I have female friends that wear rings just because they want people to take them more seriously. Again, I'm not saying that's a good thing, but that just tells you the kind of importance that, would I say, cultural, our society places on what's it called, marriage and companionship. And then when you think back to as far back as I'm Yoruba, so I can only speak for Yoruba people, but there was something called alarino, which is basically a person that the person's job is to like intercede between people that like each other. They might not even know each other yet, and they might not like each other, but oh, you spotted a nice guy in this village, and then there's one nice girl in this other village, and you're basically like speaking on behalf of both of them, going back and forth. Those are the kind of things. Even coming to modern day Nigeria, I mean, thinking of how your churches, they'll say, oh, all the youth wait behind. They'll try to organize some sort of single mixer so that people in Redeem, Lekki Parish, for example, the young people get to talk to each other and chat to each other. So they marry themselves. Thinking of the Nigerian constitution where they say things like, oh, if you're not married or if you don't, what's it called? If you've not been engaged, there are certain political positions that you cannot even apply for. People that understand that when I join Tinder, I don't just want to identify as black or of black American or of African descent. There's a deeper level to the kind of person I'm searching for and how I identify as a person. People that know that in Kenya, you can't use your credit card to pay for a subscription. You need to use M-Pesa because that's what the majority of population uses. People that know that people in Kenya are not going to pay $20 for a premium account. Those are the people that when we speak with them, they even give you renewed hope in what you're building because they start talking about things that are even in a totally different direction but still related to the topic. So I would say we've just tried to find those people, identify them, speak with them, and work with them. It's not been easy. I mean, it might sound easy from what I'm saying. I hope it doesn't. I hope I'm like sharing the truth. But when we find those people that believe, like, it's magic to be honest.
Yeah, I think just in general, like even outside just being a founder, just being a human being, like when you're just like, you have a vision and you're just trying to bring it to fruition and you find somebody else that you can share the vision with and they take it like it's their own vision. It just kind of like pumps you up and gets you excited and gets you going. So I think like everyone would like to have people like that in their space, right? But even so, as a founder, because it gets like, as I said, like it gets lonely, it gets exhausting, it gets like tiring. Like people don't believe in you, especially like you. I feel like even you being in the vertical that you are in, like people are like, okay, dating, okay, like dating app. But like if you're speaking to somebody and they're like, oh my god, like this is so crazy. You can do this, you can do that, you can do that. It help you actually like feel like your idea isn't just like a random thing that you conjure, like something that people actually need and something that has potential and something that can really really help people out. So I think that's like a really amazing thing, and I really hope that you continue to find people like that to chat with in the future, just as your business grows and expands. But yeah, so I think right now I'm just very curious to know, what your plans for the future are. You've done so much amazing stuff so far. I know, like I saw on Twitter, like this I saw like Vibe weddings, like some people that actually hashtag and were like, oh, we met on Vibe. But I was like, oh, I know the founder, I know one of the co-founders. I think I'm just curious. I think I'm curious to know, and I'm sure our listeners are also curious to know what your plans for the future are. Like, expansion, any expansions coming up, any like, new product features that you're working on. Is there anything that, anything to kind of just whet our appetites?
That's why we're always thinking of one thing or the other. I'm not going to share some of them just in case.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah. But the expansion is definitely on our mind. We feel like we've learned a lot about the market, enough that we've learned enough about like Nigerian market, Kenyan market, that we can try out South Africa. So we just want to target two cities, two major cities in South Africa, launch there, see what the feedback is like. We started speaking with people there already. So expansion is big in terms of that. Something else we're also looking at is a lot of experimentation. So Vibe itself has been like everything in terms of what we've built and what we've tried in terms of marketing has been experimentation. Obviously, some of them work, some of them fail. So there are some new experiments we want to try in terms of how can we improve the experience for people that use Vibe and people that want to find partners generally online. Where we just piloted a new product. It's in closed beta and probably will probably be a closed system for a very long time. But it's called Adore. Adore is a more exclusive dating app. It's still under like Vibe as a company, but it's a smaller dating app. It's invite only. So you can only join the platform if somebody invites you. And then we have a couple of features that we want to experiment and get feedback on. One, which is the biggest one, is something that mimics community dating aspect of our culture, which is like for you, Dami and Yem, it's not weird for your auntie to say, there's one nice guy in my church. I think you guys should talk. She probably doesn't necessarily know that guy very well, but she just thinks he's nice, maybe based on a few things that she has seen. It's not weird for your siblings to try to introduce you to somebody or your pastor to try to introduce you. So what we've done is to build that, like digitize that, and build a platform where, so let's say both of you, I somehow trust Yemi and Dami with my dating life, and I believe you guys know I trust your judgment in terms of women. I can add you to my group. It's called a tribe, where you can see other people that are on the app. You yourself, you're not using. Nobody can see you. Only people in my group, in my tribe, and basically you can see other people that are looking for partners and recommend their profile to me. So this is not you dating for yourself. You just feel like this is the kind of woman that Echo likes. She's dark skinned, whatever you think I like, and you can recommend that to me. And the whole process of that is so we had always thought it was interesting, but we never did anything about it. But in the early days of Vibe, actually, we're on a call with somebody from Morocco, and we're just explaining to them like, oh, what's dating like there, just chatting with them. And basically they said like you can't just go around and say like you're looking for a partner. Like somebody needs to introduce you. Even if you see one guy or one girl that you really like, you don't just go and just start talking to them. Like it's better to find somebody that's going to introduce you or even if the person doesn't know the person directly, like there's just some sort of intro aspect. It's slightly different from what we have in like West Africa and South Africa and East Africa, but it's one of those things where it sort of cuts across. I think it's slightly different in Nigeria in the sense that, oh, your pastors will probably get involved, your parents, your aunties, your uncles. In Kenya, it's similar to that, but I'd say the major difference will be that maybe even your colleagues will try to like matchmake you. I think I've seen that happen in Kenya. But yeah, it's just like almost the bedrock. It's almost embedded in our DNA that this is an interesting way to find someone. So we try to digitize that and say, okay, what's happening? Right now, we have a waiting list out. I'll share the link. Hopefully, you can put in the description. But people are joining our waiting list. And we're not just, you can't just use the app. You have to get invited. Either we as the Vibe slash adult team invites you, or somebody that is already on the app invites you to either look for a partner for yourself or help your friend find a partner. So that's one interesting thing that we have out right now. It's Adore, Ardor. We did some wordplay on like Adore because people said vibe sounds a bit too vibey, um, too casual.
What
Um,
does that even mean?
If
vibe
you're
just
looking to
means
get on a
like
door, I'm out here. I can give you the intro.
Please, don't add Yemi to your circle
yeah.
in Ado. Yemi is not a good judge of
You
character.
know what? Both of us should actually, Yemi should add us to his circle.
Actually,
We just call this circle, but we call it tribe.
tribe.
Yemi should add us there. Let us help his life.
Let's help his life. Yemi needs love. Hmm.
He
But
does.
you
There's a lot of love in the streets. Yeah. But yeah, what you've shared has been really, really insightful. Like it's amazing to learn from your journey. And so through all this, if there was one piece of advice that you would give to young Echo, and then we could define young Echo as different things. Young Echo could be that guy in 2007 who came across code, or young Echo could be post fintech. I want to start a dating app. Echo. You could pick which version of yourself, but then what is one piece of advice that you would give to that version of Echo?
Is this like relating to vibe or just life generally?
It could be a mix. It could be vibe. It could be startups. It could be life.
One thing I would say, and this is probably not the response you're expecting, is protect your eyes. So I've worked in tech for a while. Good amount of that time was working on Vibe. I think about 2 or 3 years ago, like my eyesight just became terrible, and apparently it's due to like sitting in front of computers. And I think a lot of people don't speak about this a lot. Now I use glasses, and it's so annoying to me because I mean, like I'm already a grown man. Maybe if I was wearing it as a child, it would be different. But protect your eyes, protect your relationships, because I think working on Vibe, a lot of friends, family, people of interest. I have not been able to give them as much time as I would have liked. I'm not saying like I regret it, but I would have. I think I should have found a better way to balance. So protect your eyes, protect your life, and try things out. Anything you don't try out, you've already failed at it, regardless of if you do anything or not. So you might as well try it and know that there's a percentage. There's a chance that you could make it. Or that thing could work out. So protect your eyes, protect your life, relationships, and try things out. I think that's the advice I'll give to younger Echo.
Yeah. So just now for other founders, investors, people listening, do you have any final thoughts? Just so Echo has gotten his bit now. What do other people get?
Sorry, what do they get? How
Final thoughts to our listeners.
I think everyone should try out things that they want to try and focus on the learning of what you can get from it. Um, don't be afraid to do something different. And this sounds very cliche, but like in the end, every time you spend doing something that is different from what you want to do is basically time you spend denying yourself, like denying who you are and where you really want to be or what you really want to be doing. and that just builds like into resentment. So if you're a VC, you've always wanted to be a music teacher, or you're a doctor, you've always wanted to be a dancer, or you work in tech, you work in payments, you've always wanted to build a restaurant review platform. I'm not saying that's a good idea, but just try those things out, because in the end, I think when you don't do those things, the regret hurts more than the failure of doing them and things not working out.
That's so deep. My God. Yeah, me, I hope you heard though. If you're a VC and you want to be a music teacher,
I mean, Yemi has been singing at Shake, so
I think he calls himself the VC Ashake or something. What's that? His Twitter name.
you know something funny that has been happening to me, and this is totally random, unrelated. Right now, anytime I see black gloves, I always think of Ashake, no matter where it is. You know, there's this photo where he wears like black gloves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was like the Joe dance, but yeah, that's totally.
The reverse Michael Jackson gloves. Yeah, but no, I don't think I could be a music teacher. But
That's probably why you're not close to achieving your dream of becoming VC Ashake. You need to get black gloves.
VC Ashaka is about the hits, so just give a couple of years. It takes a while for the VC hits to show.
Mm, okay, we'll see. All
Back to
right,
black.
back. No, but this has actually been a really great conversation. Thank you so much, Eko, for hanging out with us and for sharing your story with us, for sharing your journey from just kind of walking us, through, how you started to like how you got to where you are right now and like all the things that happened along the way. I'm so glad that we got to chat with you and have this conversation. I've learned a lot. And I'm pretty sure our listeners have learned a lot too. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was fun to relive some of the old days.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I think that's it from us, folks. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, for staying to the end. It's your host, Dooms with the money, Dooms with the booms. Do I have money? Wait, though.
Mr. Money with
Dooms.
the vibe right now.
But yeah, we will see y'all in the next episode, I guess.
Yeah, and
Thank
I
you
said
so
for
much.
every YouTuber, subscribe, like,
Yeah,
share,
like,
retweet,
share, comment,
all that good
subscribe.
stuff.
We have some goodies for you in the description, right?
So
Link.
before we sign out, please download Vibe. A lot of
Download Bible, please. So
people are getting married. People are getting engaged. Download Vibe.
The
Let's
streets
help
are
each
cold.
the
Get
streets
vibe
are
for more.
actually the love of your life, right? It's just one app away. Vibe. Why don't you just download it and find love and get off the streets, get out of the trenches? Um, that was a little too personal. But yeah, all right. I think that's it. We're signing off. We will see y'all in the next episode. Thank you for staying with us. Still built by Visible. Um, we're excited for future conversations. All right, see y'all. Bye.